one. All right. Yeah, I can do that. You gotta write it down. Well, text it down.
I was just going to say, we were talking about things that principals will ask you to do, or the assistant principal, and one of the things that I was told a lot of schools will do when they don't have, when they're more involved in sports, clubs, other types of extracurriculars, if you don't have any experience with sports, they'll ask you to be the cheerleading coach. I really don't want to do that, but I would do it. I'll just bring out my enthusiastic side, my spirit reader side.
My dad had to coach my soccer team when we were younger, and he had never played soccer in his life. So he checked out a lot of books, and he bought like coaching books, and he was like, "This is interesting. Like, I actually really like the sport. I just didn't know anything about it." So like, my dad became an expert within like a season because he had to like read because we had the level to where he was teaching us, but he was learning with us. So it was kind of an interesting thing. But I mean, my team, I played on like a bunch, and like they've never been so good as when he was like using the books to teach us.
Really?
Yeah, like that's the most success we've had to like. So like if you have to do it,
I would
find some interesting books.
I would have to do that because I used to play soccer. I did lacrosse for a year. I did cross country, but I'm not an expert at all.
YouTube is a great resource for.
Yeah, then you have a visual. I have to see like how do I tell a student to do something, even if I read about it. Like it's not the same as being able to tell what they're doing.
Like I have a feeling he wouldn't ever admit it, but it was probably like a soccer for dummies book.
Yeah.
So even and you don't have to tell them that you're reading to teach them.
No, I just know all of this stuff. Usually a big school doesn't ask teachers to do that. Like they're very involved in the sports. You get the annual
It's so good.
other coaches are like, usually I see they know what they're doing because a lot of students want to get scholarships. That's the way we
Which one was the least
I'm pretty sure there was some of this here.
Like I don't hear about for many years. Doesn't. That's what it is, but if you take it,
vacation.
take it well for stuff else. Can't be first school, typically they'll go pay you. Can't somebody for.
Doing extra stuff. That's nice.
I wonder like what
They do for teachers.
they
I mean, I'm sure you get paid extra, but
Jefferson County is more, has a more probably union. They don't, so can you, like, if you teach, you can do cheerleading, you can do soccer.
I was all awake and ready to come last night. I was like,
you don't do that.
my throat hurts. I shouldn't get my throat in the mirror.
Strength goes under
Everyone always like.
the works.
And then, I mean, and then Emily was like, are you coming to me with the new book thing? She was like, can't wait. She said she was
Stick around here.
Yeah, we're only meeting November 6th.
So we should have the whole book, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not.
No. But if you're not all the way through it, you have until the entire number 18 to have the discussion.
No. I mean, I'm sure I'll get through it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's just, did you finish?
I have not yet.
Such a warm teacher in this country.
Yeah.
That's some sort of stuff I do. I can't.
So it is for me. I don't want to stop. And then it's really hard for me to start because I'm like, oh, there's so much other crap.
That started on it. And
Teachers like a passion. And stuff. Kind of crushes your. Yeah, so great. But the trick is you have to look
so can we start? I hope that might be able to take a box in the car so you just Alright, so we start with 1 minute, please. Okay, you can start now. Okay. 13.
11,
13.
16, 12.
You tell me, please. Okay, start with this. Okay. 19.
23.
23.
Okay, so today we have 6 topics to discuss about mindfulness practice in school, in K-12 levels. Next Monday we talk about mindfulness in college students. Okay, so yeah, so number 1, please write out mindfulness at urban youth. Who does this one?
I didn't.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. I'm trying to get mine open right now.
Okay.
Take me a second. I can just give you an overview. There was a PowerPoint that was supposed to be over this, and it just kind of gave like a general idea, so I just kind of used what we already learned about mindfulness, but it said that MBSR would be really helpful, and that was the only treatment that we talked about that was helpful, though otherwise it just applied the regular principles of mindfulness. Like a lot of times in urban areas, there are neighborhoods that are poverty stricken, and sometimes they get
lesser education than other areas, and they have a real lack of educators that care and money for the schools and books and things like that. So I feel like a lot of times kids in those type of areas, they get sucked into gangs and drugs and things like that because they don't have anything else to care about like school, and they don't know how to deal with their problems. So I think mindfulness could help a lot by helping them accept the situation that they're in and helping them separate themselves. Like maybe if they have a bad home life, they should realize that, that is not what defines them. Separate themselves from their negative feelings and thoughts and experiences, and then it can help them realize what their values are, which school might be one of those, or it needs to be one of those. And then, the only treatment I really talked about was NDSR, which I have in my notes the statistics of how well it worked, but overview, it worked.
I noticed that, especially for the urban students, somehow I have not taught in the high school level yet, but somehow it's my understanding. I don't know if we can give you your opinion too. Somehow the parents may not care much about their own children's education. Is that true? Most of the time, they just send the children to the school.
I think that's the stereotype, but I think that what I've noticed and what I've learned in the education program is that it's not that they don't care, it's that they don't have the resources to necessarily provide what other parents can provide.
I volunteered at the Housing Authority down here, so, extreme poverty, and the reality down there is that they care a lot, but they're working 2 jobs. They don't have time to care, and so their kids lose any self-management.
And with Louisville and the busing system, a lot of students are bused from downtown to, towards like the East End schools, and that happens, throughout the whole district. People are bused from really far away, and without having neighborhood schools, it's very difficult for parents to be as involved as the parents who, can send their kids a couple miles to school. So a lot of times teachers will.
So in Louisville and New Albany, the parents have the choice to send them to the school that they like to, or what?
I don't know about New Albany, but I know that in Louisville, you can apply for transfers.
But so it's not choice per se, you're assigned to those schools.
Yeah.
And there's no situations where the schools like a block away and you can't go to the school. But they bus them.
Because they need a quota. Like they need they need to have diversity in each school.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So they just,
in other cities, like Philadelphia and other cities, somehow they restrict the student to go to their neighborhood school, not to outside of that area. So that is pretty good school system. So the student then may have the options, right? Instead of saying that time they would plus, decide, and you say the parents may work a couple jobs, right? 2 jobs. And they don't have much time to have their students to do the homework. Also, some parents, especially in the inner city, their parents, they may be drug dealers or whichever. They receive welfare. They may not care much about the education of the student, of their own children. Is that true?
what, drug dealer, that you see
or
that?
the one that they use drugs.
Yeah, I think that happens in rural and urban areas. But statistically, I guess.
In the poor areas?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But like when I think about really poor areas in Kentucky where there's a lot of parents doing drugs, I think of like the Appalachian area. So it's It's not just working grades.
Yeah.
Meth, yeah, meth is a really big problem there.
Yeah. So the students somehow, since they're still young, don't understand the value of education, especially they grow up in that type of environment, right? So they may be encouraged to sell drugs for their parents, or their friends too, right? I know that's kind of problems. And it's up to educators, the teacher in the school, how to guide students. If the teachers or educators don't have any specific program for them, then they can it's hard, right? It's hard to even let's say if you are a good teacher to implement some tools to have this kind of children. For of course for the middle class, upper class families, they like to choose good neighborhood to send their children to. That school system because that's why they. That's where they want their children to have good education for now and for the future. But for inner cities, it's quite different. It's challenging, especially for the children, right? How about I don't know whether in here in this area, in Louisville or Indiana, let's say if the student they skip school for many times, for many days. In other states, I know that this is other state. I know that the parents are getting in big trouble. Some of them may be jailed too, right? Does it happen here? Yes. Or really?
And
Yeah, I don't know how often it is.
I watched the counselor, Gaber, and parents do not send their kids to school so many days, then they call CPS, they Child Protective Services, and they go out and put you out with parents. It's illegal.
Really? Maybe sent to jail for the parents?
Potentially, but
It's like fine them first, isn't it?
it's really, CPS is very, they got so many issues, they can't.
truancy is inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's happened here?
Yeah. My boyfriend in high school got in trouble. His parents abandoned him, so he stopped going to school. And he went and lived with his grandmother, and he just stopped going to school in high school. And he got in a whole lot of trouble, and his parents did too, but they obviously didn't care. If they abandoned him, they don't care. But he had to go to like summer school and stuff to make up for it so that they wouldn't get in trouble, and he would get in trouble. But it was a weird situation, like they said. To come back to school, you have to make up all these credits, or you can't come back to school. If that makes sense. So yeah, you can't get in big trouble for it.
They weren't forcing him to go back to school. They were saying like you have to do this or you won't be able to come back.
Yeah.
To that specific school though, but
Yeah.
you have to go back to school.
Yeah, exactly. They said like if you want to come back here, then you have to spend your whole summer making up these things. Yeah. Yeah, not that he can go up to school ever again, but if you want to.
No, I know for a second I was like,
Yeah, it was still a weird situation still.
What's the word you? Oh yeah, you like to ask some more? We still discuss about the how to implement Mindfulness to have the urban.
Yeah. Well, just before I start here, when we say urban, are we just talking about? Like kind of maybe children in like impoverished areas?
They say that.
cities,
Or
inner city schools.
so okay, so maybe just like not as rich, or like kind of lower class, or because that's kind of what I wasn't exactly sure what it was at first, so I didn't look at it. That's kind of the idea I got. Anyways, so yeah, the article I read, it said, that urban children are kind of likely to experience like poor academic performance, stress and behavior problems, and also that they kind of have a lower control over their emotional and cognitive processes. So because I think of the fact that they have this lower control, I guess, over their emotions there, I think they're more likely to kind of maybe react to in maybe like physical violence ways. For instance, if a friend of theirs says something makes them mad, they may go and just want to hit them. So I think by being taught mindfulness, they can be taught to, whenever they feel themselves getting mad, just start to take a step back real quick and try to assess their feelings, and then they can try to control their emotions rather than having their emotions controlling them. And also, because of the fact that, this is going on to a little new topic here, but because of the fact that they may be, their family may be, a lower class, they may have even a little stress on them, like wondering if they're gonna, have enough food to eat, or they wonder if their parents are going to be able to get a job. So I think mindfulness can help them in obviously living in the present there, so they won't have to worry about that stuff. Because it's not really good for them to worry about that stuff since there's nothing they can do about it. So I think mindfulness can help them in that way. But that's pretty much what I have.
So you use this. This one, right?
No, see that one. It was a
PowerPoint or this one?
It wasn't the PowerPoint.
This is PowerPoint. This is from you, right?
No, I did. It was a pilot study like that.
Study.
Oh wait, that's the one I did. Sorry, I just didn't recognize the title. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, that's the most when they have some behavioral problems, social, emotional difficulties, poor academic performance. So therefore, it's helpful for them to make that kind of judgment. They can do this kind of program for them. Here, may I ask one quarter of forest youth have social and emotional difficulties related to their more cognitively advanced fields. Have you done kind of research that sometimes, especially for the students from inner city, they come to school with empty stomach?
Have I done research?
This happened?
Yeah, I've read a lot of journal articles about schools that try to, alternative schools or schools that are trying different experimental methods to help students if they have a high percentage of students with low socioeconomic status.
The charter school, right? Charter school?
Charter
school.
Yeah.
We have in Indiana, but not in Louisville, right?
Yeah, we don't have any in Kentucky.
Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Buddhist number 2, please. Describe effectiveness and mindfulness in coaching educators. You do?
I'm sorry?
Which one?
I'm doing number 4.
Oh, Buddhism.
Wait.
Okay, anyway. Let's skip this one because this may relate to the 5. Buddhism number 5. Yeah, we can do this relate, and we have time to watch some video clips. Yeah.
So you want me to go ahead and?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
dedicated?
Well, we already watched like a video clip in here about like children talking about how the mindfulness program that they did helped them. So I kind of kicked off my paper. But let's see. So the mindfulness in children, it can help them improve their attention span, reduce their stress, and help them focus more after like stimulating activities, such as like changing subjects or like recess and things like that. So I read 2 studies. The first one was the Mindful Schools, and so they did a 5-week mindfulness program, and so 3 days a week they had 15-minute sessions, and they did all the basic mindfulness-based activities, so the breathing, walking, eating, test taking, listening, things like that. And then they took tests every so often to like kind of get a quantitative, qualitative like result, I guess, on how mindfulness was helping them. And like the teachers also would comment on the children's progress, and there was like a significant increase in their academic performance as well as their social skills, and they even continued after the study was over. So I mean, I think you could say that was a success. And I like agree to add a mindfulness component into the curriculum, just to, I mean, it wouldn't really take that much time out of the day either if you wanted to do a minute or 2 here and there to just kind of refocus your classroom. And then the second one focused more on high school students, and the main focus was to improve the relationship between the students' academic confidence and their performance, so what they believe they can do and how it affects what they are actually doing in the classroom. And so they had them take pre-tests and post-tests, and they also benefited from the mindfulness. It improved everything. I think, and then the last thing I wrote about was like their emotional wellness, because like school, we want to increase the academic performance, but it's also a place to make sure that children are, well, it's not really a place to make sure they're getting what they need, because they should be provided for at home, but in the cases where they're not, like emotional wellness is important. And I think that mindfulness can help children deal with what's not in the classroom, what they bring in, because it actually has a huge impact on their academic performance. And so, I mean, I have a few examples of that.
Yeah, so which model, MBSR, MBCD, or which model you take this, or depend upon the situations?
I think it depends on the situation. They didn't really say they used one or the other. It sounded more like MBSR for like test anxiety and things like that. Maybe MBCT for the
I used to tell a story when I was young in Vietnam. My teacher used to buy pencil, pen, and so forth. He's so generous. I think it was for 5th grade. I don't remember. So one day, when he walked into the class, and what happened? We talk a lot. We play around. We chase each other around in the children. So he will walk into the class. We like this table. It's not heavy like this one, but it's like wood table. So he just sat there. But if we still run around, we still talking, we still make noise and so forth. What happened? He flipped up the table. And everyone's quiet for a few minutes. And we went up to pick up these items and set up the table again. And last class, we didn't dare to talk again when he was there. But is that, what do you think? Is that a good story? Is good approach to frighten students not to talk, not to make noise?
But
It's violent, right?
it's effective, but yeah, I would say it's violent.
It's frightened.
I had a teacher who I really respected and who would do things like that, but also implemented. I guess you could say he did model mindfulness at times, but then there were other times when he thought it was necessary to invoke fear. And when I was younger, I really, really appreciated his teaching style, and I really appreciated everything he did for the students because he was a fantastic teacher. But looking back, I realized well, it might have been better if he had developed some other skills. Because still, whenever I come back to see him and talk to him about teaching, there's a tiny part of me that's like, I hope I don't say the wrong thing. Don't get mad at me, But I'll always respect him.
So, yeah, that's one way. Probably he didn't know how to deal with the student except expressing his anger, right?
I think that's what it is when you don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
You just lose your cool.
Your parents somehow.
I think he did it on purpose. He knew what he was doing when he yelled at us, and he had a purpose for it. He believed that was the right way to handle things.
So last time we talked about the parents and children relationship. Sometimes you throw some cups on the floor to get their attention.
No, I've never put a cup on the floor. I have yelled really loud though.
Okay.
One of my teachers threw a steam.
Yeah,
Oh,
my
those are
teacher used
heavy.
to throw erasers or pieces of chalk. You could tell when he was getting frustrated because he'd break off a little piece of his chalk and he'd just kind of sit there and wait for you to be quiet. And then once you weren't, you just.
I had a teacher at one of the guys fell asleep in class and fell asleep all the time, and he had all these Apple things on his desk, and he had one that was a stress ball, like the foam that you could squeeze, and he thought he picked up that to throw at him, and instead he picked up this big wooden paperweight apple and threw it and hit the kid in the head, and we all laughed, and it wasn't funny because he was going to get in trouble for hitting his kid in the head with an apple. So we all just never said anything about it again, or he might hit us in the apples.
Yeah.
Don't tell him.
I've seen some very interesting ways of getting people to pay attention. Some of my teachers would if someone would fall asleep, they'd slip their book off their desk and then bang the desk with the book to get them to wake up. Or I had a teacher, he was also the golf coach, so he'd have his clubs in there, so he'd slip his golf club under his desk and hit the metal part really loud, so he'd freak people out. So many people fell out of their desk. It's really funny because he wasn't really harming anyone, but at the same time, there probably was a lot better way to approach it.
Yeah.
I had a teacher who
There's
had
just
a
no way,
spray
right?
bottle.
What's that?
When people would fall asleep, he just
I've had
wanted
one
the
that did
spray
that.
bottle and
Water.
Oh, yeah.
Like disciplining a cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's like a rifle, water down the
So you are in that kind of teacher training program. Do the
I don't
teachers
see
have
that
approach?
anymore. There are a lot of changes going on right now in education. And I'm sure some of these, more experienced senior teachers can still get away with things, but young teachers, I don't think would do that. And if they did, then
Parents
I
would
don't
be
know,
at
that
the
would not be
principal's
okay.
office that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I was that
I'm sure it
parent.
still happens, though. It depends on the school. But we're not taught to do that. We're taught very,
Professional way.
very professional ways of dealing with things.
Let's bring the water.
In ed psych we learn about how to build relationships with the students and how to organize your classroom so that students know exactly what their expectations are, and there's a very procedural way of dealing with things.
But still, they learn that structure, but in real life, right? When they go into the classroom, it's quite different. It's dependent on their emotion.
Yeah.
Their mood too.
And
Right.
we're supposed to be doing professional development and learning how to respond appropriately to those emotions.
So, teaching college students who might not have much problems, but teaching the K-12 children, you may encounter many kind of different problems.
Yeah.
when I first taught officially here in my class on the member introduction of HR, I tried prepare my PowerPoints from the beginning of the class to the end. And for a month, I tried my best to give the lecture in front. But when I turned around, I saw some students do this, play games or whichever, and some were sleeping. So after that month, I changed my approach that I get everyone involved in the class, and no one could sleep. Especially my class about from 1:15 to 2:30. That's you can say not critical time. So after lunch, students tend to fall asleep. Anyway, so we have many ways to approach to guide students, to guide other people not in the violent way. Some people may not have that tools, right? The one who spray the water, the one who gives the golf course, stick and so forth. They may not know, right, the tools available there. So they get react depend upon their mood and emotions. Sometimes it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy for all of them. Okay, so let us go to order one and come back here. Number 3, who does number 3? Yeah, please. Why?
Okay.
Why education needs mindfulness? Why?
Well, I think that for education in general, for the educational process to occur, also teachers need mindfulness and students need mindfulness. It's the whole process. I have some notes in my phone. So for students, it helps kids to be more in the present, to be focused on the subject matter, to learn social skills and be able to interact with their peers better, to be able to listen to instruction better. One of the examples, okay, they say one of the quotes was, parents and teachers tell kids 100 times a day to pay attention, but they never tell them how. I thought that was pretty interesting. They're not taught how to pay attention. We just tell them, pay attention, pay attention. Why aren't you paying attention? I always tell my kids that, we're doing homework, pay attention, because they'd be off doing something else in their head, But we don't teach them how. So mindfulness is a good way to teach them how to pay attention. And so that we can help children slow down and think, then they can find a lot of the answers for themselves within. Kids are, quite brilliant, so they just need to be taught how to just take the time to think about what they're working on. Another thing was that some kids who have issues with impulse control, which we talked about with inmates or released prisoners, everyone can have issues with impulse control, and especially kids because they're young and they haven't learned how to control their reactions to stuff. Kids are always getting little squabbles on the playground and stuff, and a lot of it's just impulse control. And one of the stories was after they had finished a program, the kid was doing something, and the teacher tried to talk to him. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm taking a moment." He was really upset, so he took a moment. He told the teacher, "I'm sorry, I'm taking a moment right now." And the teacher's like, okay, let him take his moment because somebody had made him angry and he was recentering himself. So I thought that was pretty useful. There's actually a lot of pilots going on around the country in different schools that are being sponsored. There's some in LA, there's some sponsored by a team from Stanford where they're doing little pilot programs of mindfulness. For teachers, it's important because they can learn to relate to one another better. They can work with their administrators better. They can examine their curriculum as a whole, a big holistic thing, of what's really beneficial for the student and what's really not, what helps meet goals, what doesn't. Classroom teachers are thoughtful about their teaching. They're thoughtful about their curriculum. They have more patience, and they can, if you're a mindful teacher, you can observe your emotions. As if a kid smarts off, you can get angry, or you can say, clearly this child has a need, and he needs to do something, else besides. You shouldn't take it personally as an educator or a parent. You should never take a child's reaction to an emotional situation personally. And I think that that's a big trouble for a lot of teachers, is that, you have 10 kids in your class, 15, 30, and half of them are acting up, and,
a third of them are mouthing off, it probably wears you down, and then you get to where you just want to snap back at them or yell at them or punish them, when really they need to be refocused. They need to, maybe your curriculum needs to be rearranged. Maybe they need a 2-minute jumping up and down session so they can get all their wiggles out and then do some meditation so they can refocus. It's not necessarily the teacher's place to get offended by a child's behavior, because you should know that a child is not possible to be 100% of control of themselves all the time. So as an adult and an educator, you should be able to separate yourself from your feelings about it. With regard to education, I read a study. It was talked about the relational mindfulness, because mindfulness is good for relationships, and it's not just husband, wife, or partner type thing, or even a parent-child. But we're talking about school counselors and teachers, school counselors and students, teachers and administrators and facilitators. Like, everyone needs to get along well in this environment to make it work. You can't have friction between an administrator and a teaching staff, because just the right decisions won't be made. There's a lot of bad decisions made because of politics and policies that don't help educate the kids. I mean, kids need a lot of things that policies and politics totally ignore. And so I think if there's mindfulness from the top down, then the entire thing would work better. I think that's pretty much.
Yeah, plus student-to-student relationship too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's important. Most of the time we heard the story about the student bully on each other. Or it's...
I think that the mindfulness program would be really helpful. There's a lot of issues with bullying. And I think that mindfulness is a really great way to approach, bullying, because most kids that are being bullies are doing it out of insecurity for the way they feel. They have their own fears, right? So that's not like they're just being bullies because they think they're tough. It's usually the opposite. They usually have some inner reason that they're insecure, they're afraid of something, and they just take that out on a student they see weaker than them because it makes them feel better about themselves to be strong. So, I mean, those are things that emotional, mindfulness can really help address. You learn to separate yourself from your emotions and how to react when you have a feeling. That's really important for children. I know, like, if your kids, like, when your kids change schools, like, even just from, even if you don't move a bunch and you go from elementary to middle, or even the first few weeks back at school, there's always like a pecking order type thing, just like with farm animals. I mean, there really is, like, they all have to get sorted out, like who's the leaders and who's the followers and who's in charge, and it happens. I noticed it every year with my kids, and it's like if they change schools, which fortunately mine didn't have to do that only one time, but it's like that pecking order has to be reestablished. Everybody has to know that they can't be picked on, but nobody knows that until the bully type kids come and test them, right? So that's always going on. All these kids are being tested, and they're like reacting to one another. There's that whole social dynamic going on, like at the beginning of every year, or if a new kid comes into the group, that dynamic happens every time.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is somehow, the time is when it's too long for the student to handle, especially after lunch. Usually it is, especially in Vietnam or the country, they allow the student to take a nap during lunchtime to recoup their energy. I went to high school here in this country to Philadelphia, but sometimes it's too long. Is that right? You think so? Especially after lunch.
You think the school day is too long?
The school day too long.
It's pretty long. I think for little children it's quite long. Like for first through fourth, even like kindergarten, sometimes they go half day, but school days too.
Yeah, they've made a lot of kindergarten full day now.
I think.
And then they have like hours of homework.
Yeah.
I know it was really difficult for my second graders when they were trying to sit, even second through fourth. It was really hard for them to be in the same class in the same chair all day, especially when they cut down on exercise. PE's cut out because you have to spend more time on math or something.
Nowadays, they shouldn't be sitting in one chair the whole day. Each class should be the teachers should be implementing differentiated learning and differentiated styles. So they should be getting out of their desk, getting into groups, getting into pairs, doing physical activity, doing activities, hands-on stuff. I mean, that is the ideal situation.
Yeah, and even that, especially for us, two people, sometimes after lunch we need to have a nap or take a rest.
Yeah.
Not talk about the little children, right? The young children. It's been tough on them. They strain their energy.
Some teachers, when we would come back into the classroom after lunch, some teachers would like dim the lights, and we wouldn't be able to take a nap, but like we could put our heads down. We could just sit there quietly for like 5 or 10 minutes, which is nice. And there are other professors I've had in college have told the students before, we're going to switch activities every 20 minutes because studies show that our attention span lasts 20 minutes. So they're doing things like that to help too.
If you could do like a 2 to 3 minute meditation between each of those studies, and just ask them who has a lot of energy right now, and if a bunch of hands go up, then you let them jump up and down, wiggle, turn on some music, let them dance, and then do a meditation, because then they've got the bugs out, right, and they're focused, and then go on to their thing. I mean, that wouldn't take maybe 5 minutes, and probably help a lot.
I heard about this one kind of meditation where, and maybe it's a new kind of meditation, where when you're in, it's in a meditation group, but you can do it by yourself too. But before you sit down to meditate quietly, you stand up and you either start screaming or you move around a lot, and then you're just like boom, like you like let out like a noise or something that just like gets your energy out, and so it's much easier to meditate because you've released all of your, whether it's stress or anger or whatever, you just release it verbally and somewhat physically.
There's on YouTube, there's videos where teachers do like a choreographed activity that's meant to be used after lunch. So they have to sing a little song and make them some dance or something like that.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's just move on to number 4.
Okay, that's me.
Yeah, please. So, yeah, let's talk first, and then we give you something with PowerPoint so far.
Okay. I looked at
Yeah.
I looked at a PowerPoint that described students' experiences in a study, and based on the drawings that they had in the PowerPoint of, like, students would do drawings after they meditated to show how they felt and illustrate that. So I'm pretty sure the students were young, probably in the elementary to middle school aged students. And one thing that was really significant was that when they described how it felt to be mindful or to meditate or to do a body scan or something like that, when they described it, they said that it was like everything was moving around them really, really quickly. And then when they would draw it, they would draw themselves in the middle of the picture, and then it looked like there was like a tornado around them, or like a huge wave or something like that. So that signified that when they are mindful, to me it looked like they probably don't know this, but it's like they're letting go of all the craziness around them and they're just still. And when they would, and these are all students, it wasn't a huge group of students for this study, it was probably like 10 or 15, but they're all students who dealt with things such as, and these are their words, they struggle with overwhelming sad feelings, easily distracted, chatty, they daydream a lot, struggle to focus in class, find it difficult to concentrate in class, unmotivated, unfocused, disengaged, lack self-confidence, and struggle to focus on their work. So a lot of similar things and some different things dealing with emotions and things like that, but probably all very similar. And then when they described what it felt like to practice mindfulness, their initial reaction was, and I think they did about 8 to 10 sessions. Their initial reaction was it was good or fine. One student said they felt calm and relaxed. One student said I feel better than I normally feel. One student said, I thought it was good because I've got more energy. And somebody said my head was spinning around and around and around the room, just going slowly in a peaceful kind of way. So maybe that was like, that student was like observing everything around him or her, I don't know. And so one student said it was weird and funny. They talked about things that they noticed that they don't usually notice. They noticed sounds that they usually didn't notice. They paid attention to their muscles. One student said, I feel like my muscles are relaxed and my body is relaxed. The initial mindfulness practice was described as nice and quiet. During it, one student said he had been aware of many different things all at the same time. Towards the end of the session, there were students who were noticing much more than before and much more engaged in mindfulness practice. And they would do things like focus on positive memories. They would focus on a place where they wanted to be or something they wanted to be, like they'd imagine themselves as like an animal that they wanted to be and imagine what that would be like. They would draw pictures. Let's see. And then they would draw an image that signified how they felt in that present moment. And a lot of them drew like geographic figures. Like one student just drew triangles and then rectangles, and then one student drew a lot of rainbows. It was just very, did I say geographical? I meant geometrical. I'm sorry. I meant geometrical.
Like trying to stand up in the end.
Sorry, I just realized that. Yeah, so like a lot of geometric shapes, which I thought was really funny because like when you talk to art therapists, you have they have young people draw their emotions, and their emotions are like anger's like, and then like happiness is like, and, you know, it's like a very simple shape. All their emotions are represented by either geometric figures or like a color or something like that, and that's what you saw in their drawings. So it was really interesting because the students, their description of mindfulness wasn't like, you know, they're not very articulate yet, and they don't really understand what's happening necessarily, but they, based on their limited descriptions, you can tell that there's a lot more going on that they may not even understand. And what they are doing is, like the teachers would also offer their observations of how the students are reacting, and the teacher oftentimes had a much more in-depth description of how the student has evolved or how the student has changed in class due to mindfulness practice, and it's very effective.
I used to, you have students draw circles with a paint program, do it for a couple of minutes, and just illustrating with it, just see who they act together, and those who did. So some people really fought it, and other people would get a little focus better.
So, yeah, like you said, you observe the student at night.
Yeah, I'm doing my practice or my observations at main.
You see sometimes students, they're so quiet, they feel that they are isolated in the classroom. They don't dare to talk much with other students. How could you deal with that type of student by using the mindfulness?
I see that a little bit in the classroom, in the classes that I'm observing. Most of the students I'm an observer of the classmen, and the teacher I'm with has facilitated a really great community in class. But there are some students who are very quiet. I would say, just off the top of my head, I mean, I'd have to reflect on it more, but if I were to use mindfulness to try to help them feel more comfortable, I guess I would try to model it, but also I would try to engage them in conversation and accept whatever response they give me. And just say things that are encouraging. I think it's something that happens over time. That just talking with a student over time will break down that wall that a lot of students put up. I would use, if it was like, right now in education, we're talking about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is like the instruction that all the students get, and then if a student has like academic, intellectual, or behavioral discrepancies, they'll go to tier 2, and then they get extra instruction in tier 3. It's like, sometimes it's like special ed, sometimes. So you would implement MBSR, you could implement MBSR to all tier 1 students, which is like everyone, or 80% of the students usually. And then you could go to MBCT if they have behavioral or intellectual discrepancy or something like that.
This one is the one.
Yeah, that's the one I went to.
This is the tornado, right?
Yeah.
Picture is the
Those are the
tornado,
ones.
right?
Yeah.
Going around, it's spinning.
Yeah.
It's spinning in Florida, right?
Yeah. That's how they see the world.
Yeah. If they have comma, it's for the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
the sea, and so forth. Even they have
I didn't know if it was a ghost.
the ghost.
Yes, their fears that they're facing.
When you were in high school, do you have the experience that sometimes you need to do presentation in front of class? You be frozen when you were up there. This happened to you, or you have school card? Do you have happened? You have that experience when you try to present something, like what do you call it, stage fright, right? So how would you overcome with that problem? Practice.
I don't know. One thing that my public speaking professor did for this public speaking class here that I really, really enjoyed was before we did our first speech, he did like an icebreaker with all the students, and he would give us a subject to talk about with one other person next to us, and then he would give us like a minute or two to talk about that thing. He'd be like, pets, talk about your pets. And then we'd have to do it. It was kind of awkward, but we rotated around and we ended up talking to like most of the people in the class, and we had all talked about something in our lives, and we got to know each other. And that actually, I really liked that he did that at the time because the whole purpose was, and he explained the purpose later, was that we need to see the audience as people who are rooting for us. They're our cheerleaders. They don't want us to fail. And if we're prepared and we know what we want to do, and we know that our audience cares about us and wants us to do well, then maybe there's less to be afraid of.
Okay. Let me give you one example before we move on. Let me ask you this question. So this a ship, right? In the ship is 22 ships, and let's say 10 boats. Okay. So what's the age of the captains? What's his age?
20.
20?
This is how I feel about all math problems.
Me too.
This is how I feel about all math problems.
Oh, okay.
It's about as much sense
So
as
what's the age of the captain?
What are we basing how do we guess what the age is? What are we basing that off of?
Yeah.
It's at least 16.
What's the age?
It depends on where the ship is docked.
Okay.
Depends on where the ship's from. Like, what's the adult age of a male that's allowed to sail a ship? It's going to be minimum of 17 if it's
So anyway,
1600s.
this is one of the examples as in articles. Sometimes, since most of you are a student and you are graduate student, so you recognize a logical question, right? It's a logical question. But when you ask a student, especially a young student, they may have the answer probably 32.
Yeah.
See, because
32,
they're
there's
not
numbers.
mindful.
Yeah.
They're not mindful. They may see only the number.
But they might be afraid of not having an answer.
Yeah.
They say that.
There's like, 32 sounds
This
good.
is illogical.
My dad's 32. He could be a captain.
That's
That'll work.
That's why they make this kind of example.
Yeah.
To see whether we're mindful of the question or not. Especially when you take, we want to take GED, GIE.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I've
You go
decided
to-
for that. Yeah.
You want to take soon,
I took it.
especially in the multiple choice question, right? There's many similarity among the answer, right? A, B, C, D, right? Right? You have to pick up the right one, the logical one, the reasonable one. So you know that you won't be, if you're not mindful in taking the test, you may get lost.
They give you a time limit too for each section, so that adds a little pressure, right? And then it's harder to focus because you only have so much time. And you can't be looking around because they watch you like it's a prison or something. Just so you know, you like gotta have fingerprints and all kinds of weird stuff when you go in there. So I would say study a lot.
Plus the
Meditate
anxiety.
first.
Plus the anxiety when you take a test. And next week on Monday, I think it's so applicable for all of you. They say that about 20% of students who may have that problem, test anxiety, they're so frightened when they take a test. Is that sometimes happen to you? Right?
My older sister had to take, not the GRE, but she's getting licensed to become an occupational therapist. And she had studied her butt off, like day in and day out, almost 24/7. She took like one day off, and so she studied that day sometimes. And so she went in to take the biggest test she'd ever taken in her whole life. And I was trying to like talk to her about mindfulness, and I was like, I'm not worried that you don't know what you need to know to pass the test, but like I know that you're really stressed, and I know that you're really freaking out, and that might affect, how much time you spend on a certain problem, or how many times you go back and question yourself. And she's like, I know, I'm gonna relax and it'll be fine. I'm like, and she didn't say that, but like she ended up not passing the test. And a lot of people she knows didn't pass the test, and because there's a lot of application problems, and she didn't know exactly what was going to be on it. And my mom was, before Rachel took the test, and after, my mom was freaking out about it too. She's like, what if she doesn't pass the test? And I was like, why would you say that? Like, if she doesn't pass the test, then it's okay, she can take it again. I mean, it's expensive, but she can take it again. If you're freaking out about it, then she's going to freak out about it even more. And it's like everyone's just so crazy about it. So when I take the GRE, I'm just going to be like,
Don't tell anybody. I hope you're taking
If
it.
I fail. Yeah.
Just don't mention I can take it.
Yeah, so next Monday we talk about that because I think you do.
No.
So even up to now, right, sometimes this is the major one, right, the final one, right, it's so scared, so frightened when you walk into the room, you take that test, you still have that kind of feeling?
I'm nervous for every test.
Oh, really?
Like it's bad. Like, I study, and then I get in there, and then I get all like jittery. I can't focus, and then the most basic things I forget. So like the easy points, the ones that they put on there because they know that everyone knows them. I'm like, what did that even? What was that? And so it's gotten a little better, but not very much. It's something I really have to work on. It's like the whole day I get my stomach's upset.
Okay, we talk about that next Monday. Yeah, sometimes it was, well, days, weeks we started, but when we go there, we screw up the test. It's unfair, right? Okay, so let's go back to question. Yeah, let's see let's see, you did 5, right? What is it?
Yeah, I did 5
And number
earlier.
6. Okay, yeah, your last one, and after that we should get this.
So the article I read focused a lot on how there's an increasing number of students with learning and mental disabilities going into the school systems, which puts them at risk for future disorders, and so it's putting a lot of burden on the teachers if they're not properly trained how to handle that. And it's frustrating for the students too, because they're the ones that are trying to learn and they can't. So along with the academic needs that teachers have to meet for the students, they're also more increasingly being expected to meet non-academic needs, such as teaching them morals and attend to their social needs and making sure that they're safe. And so it's not just about, I need to teach my subject. You have to, especially like K through 12, you're expected to cultivate like good people.
By law in Indiana, and probably in Kentucky too, it says teachers are required to teach morals.
So I mean that's putting a lot of pressure on the teachers because your kids are all different and they're all doing different things at home, so you're having to find ways to attend to every kid. And so it was saying that teachers tend to burn out within 5 years and quit their jobs and go find different jobs. So then it started talking about how they're starting to implement mindfulness into the school systems to teach not just the kids how to be mindful, but the teacher being the leader has to be able to do it as well. And they talked about like, I didn't get like a definition for it, but it was saying contemplative mindfulness. So I guess being conscious about exactly what's happening. So I kind of took it as an overview term of what we've been talking about. So like it talked about sitting meditation, yoga, tai chi, and it said a conscious contemplation and immersion in art and nature can help increase emotional regulation, empathy, compassion, and resilience in stressful times. And then I didn't look into this very far, but it said something else about contemplative neuroscience, which is something new, I guess, and contemplative clinical science. So it's looking at how mindfulness is changing the way your brain works.
One thing I want to mention is for the K-12 students, especially in the high school level, sometimes they may not have much motivation to go to school, especially in the city student, right? Mm-hmm. They may not care whether they get the high school diploma or not. But for college students, quite different because you have to take tuition, and so it's clear that's one of the top things that as a teacher or educators you need to find ways how to motivate the student in mind to study. So remote experience when we were in high school, so students came to school and hang around. We didn't learn much. And for high school students, so high school teacher, they didn't have much tools, or they could not know how to approach to the one that don't have much motivation to study. So of course, in the teacher training program, they provide that kind of tools, some kind of tools to motivate the student.
Yeah. I mean, the effectiveness of that completely depends on the teacher, but they try to teach us techniques for motivating students, for sure.
But sometimes it's just overwhelmed, right? Overwhelmed on the teachers, and while you're teaching here in front, and back there they play games, or they talking, or so forth, because they may not care much about the lesson. Okay, how about him? Do you have anything to add more?
Yeah, I actually did number 6.
Okay, yeah,
as
please.
well. I just looked at, there was a PowerPoint that had a similar title to the assignment, but it talked a lot about social emotional learning, which is a process of learning that's important to things like recognizing and managing your emotions, developing concern for others, helps to form positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and deal with challenging situations effectively. So it's really effective and important in children and students. And within that, they found that there'd be improvements in attention and a reduction of externalizing behaviors, which I guess that's just bad behavior. I didn't really know what that was. Depression, and as well as stress and anxiety. So they target these programs towards problem youth. And it also has positive effects on their test scores, physical health, life, academic success, and it increases their likelihood to engage in pro-social behavior. And low scores of social emotional learning were related to more dropouts and less students attending. And I talked about a program called Mind Up, which is you practice mindfulness 3 times a day and then 3 minutes each time. So it's kind of similar to just how we practice it here, really. And then it just gave directions on how to do that. I think we all know it. And it said that about 15% of children currently have mental health illnesses. And if that's not treated, then it can lead to worse problems in adulthood. Talked about another program called Meditation on the Soles of the Feet, which is a procedure that enables an individual to divert their attention from an anger or anxiety-provoking situation to a neutral part of their body. So,
I talked about that one. Were you here when I talked about that? Like you focus all your anger, like you find where your anger originated, and you focus your mind there and accept your anger and where it originated, and you kind of let it all come to you, and then at one point you will all of a sudden focus it all on the soles of your feet, and so that it drains out of you to your feet.
Oh, that makes sense.
I don't know if you were there.
Yeah, and sometimes I just judge people if you have too much things here and ache and so forth, too much concern in your brain. So can you imagine, or even when you're taking a shower, remember I think I told you, right?
Yeah.
When you're taking a shower, the water will not stay up to your head, will go down to the feet. This is what the way to release your hands, to release your anger, to release your stress and so forth.
So is that an MBCT tool? Because it's altering behavior. Or it's not modifying behavior.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, do you want to say anything?
Actually, like, I don't remember the grade is because I just add more is about, we're talking about student usually anxiety about taking tests. So if like you do like mindfulness, so you can like improve your memory is by like you talk about like whenever you have stress before you take the test. So actually you're gonna forget everything about it in your mind because you're so stressed out. And the reason you feel stressed out during taking the test because you worry about the result in the future. Like after I take the test, so what kind of grade I'm gonna get? But because I think usually like most of students they think about like 90% they're gonna get a low grade on the test. So that's why when they're doing that, taking the test, it's almost straight out about, what kind of question and what information, like, should they remember. So, like, the best, I think, like, before taking the test, so like, before that an hour, like, try to, like sit down or staying up, like, have about, like, quiet, like, 5 to 4 minutes. So, like, actually, like, calm down. And we can focus on like, okay, this is just a test. If I don't do good on the first one, we can have a chance to do on the second one. So actually, you just like cool down your mind to allow your brain actually like collect the old information you have learned in the past. So it's more easier when you're taking the test because they're going to improve a lot about your memory. So that's why I think that's important for education.
We have only 5 minutes to go, so I like to show this good articles like in the Mindful Classroom, and they provide what they call the 3 high Let's see. It's better, right? 300 leverage instructional practice. Looking closely, we know what's meant, right? We pay attention to short-term learning, exploring the possibility and perspective. In this part, uh, they provide the tools for the teachers that okay, let's say you sit this you sit this side. So what happened when you switch from this side to the other side? You change your
Perspective.
yeah. Or when you sit in, your view is maybe different from when you stand in or you stand down. So that's why they train the student how to be flexible with their views. And what is meant by introducing
Ambiguity.
what is mean? Why? Why do we need to introduce us? Why is that? Why?
Because we need to be okay with the fact that things aren't black and white, and sometimes there isn't an easy definition for everything. That there are multiple different perspectives that can be right.
They give one example like we have that type of autopilot, what we call it, autopilot. Remember?
Yeah.
When we do things in the familiar ways, we don't pay attention much. Like from the place from your house drive to the school, you know the roads, so it's more easy. Then from your house you drive to, let's say, New York. You have to pay attention on the road or speed, whatever. This means they create some kind of linguistic. That means so that the student pay more attention. They have more curiosity to pay attention about the object instead of going through the day with some routine schedule. It may be boring for them. Alright, so anyway, so we have still have few more minutes. Let me show you. I have 3 little clips here. I don't know which one is. Okay, this one is fair. Inner kids, mindfulness. A little bit long, but you may watch only portion of that. You watch it yet? Not yet?
So here's what we do. First time around, what we're going to do is pass the cup. We're going to do it with our eyes open. And when we do it with our eyes open, we want to pay attention and not spill any water. And we're going to pass it from one person to the next, okay? But what I think is the genius of what Susan was creating these games that are really exercises, only disguised as games. And there's an activity of connecting in their minds these pieces of practice, of being able to breathe and being able to focus on just the idea of attention. You know, the fact that that's this common thread that goes through it, that's an amazing piece, I think, because it really will stick with you.
What's this? This is our attention. And we're placing our attention on our breath and on our breathing.
Remember that the purpose here is not in the length of time that we sit, but the quality of attention that we're able to generate. So you're going to really keep your mind focused, your eyes softly focused on the drum in the center, or your eyes closed.
whether the kids are meditating. And our pat answer is, it doesn't matter to us. I mean, it really makes no difference to me whatsoever whether or not these kids are meditating.
We have a lot. I have some really tips you can watch at home. My own, that's what you say in my program.
Oh, yeah.
And this one too, mindfulness in school. So anyway, this is so getting popular now. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is really important for you. 19. Well, you see it's exact to AMU. Right.
Again.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Right. Okay, so number 1, please.
I'm sure.
Okay, number 2, okay, Tina. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7.
You go.
Okay, and you the last one.
Yes.
And actually, this one is so important for you. And somehow, since we have the we record the class, otherwise we would go out to talk with the student how can handle these things. As we talk about test anxiety, talk about because number 3, the severely distressed college student. Right? Okay, so anyway, so it's up to you. All right, thank you. So see you Monday. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
It's kind of a question about the paper. So you said we need to do what was like a macro level, a micro level. So I just want to come up with a situation. Okay, like